I'm the past president of the Rotary Club of Freeport, and I am the general manager of the Rotary Water Plant. During Hurricane Dorian, I was at home, and our house flooded. We escaped up to our cottage, which was a little elevated, and waited for the storm to pass. Before the storm happened, we knew it was coming. We knew it was going to be a pretty bad one. So Rotary is very proactive in anything it does, and the water plant is no exception. We're very proactive down here too. So we had all of our tanks full and all of our trailers were full. We had water in all of the hurricane shelters already, long before the storm, and Rotarians who were involved at the water plant were home with trailers so that they could hit the ground running. We have a very advanced network of communication through WhatsApp that we can communicate what routes are open and what's not, what's flooded, what roads are closed, what are no-go zones. So after before the all clear, actually, I came down to the water plant and zigzagged my way here. And when I got here, there was probably about 150 people, maybe 50 cars out front here, and they were all hiding in their cars or crouched behind the buildings or in the bush or something. And they wanted what we had, and that was water. Because this storm sat on us for a couple days. And I guess people don't prepare as much as they should be preparing. And even so, being trapped inside, you're gonna drink your water and you're gonna eat your food. And we had our 5,500 gallon tank full of water, ready to roll. And beforehand, we had one of the service club organizations, the Pilot Club, the ladies from the Pilot Club, they had filled and sanitized all of our 1 gallon jugs. So we had about 800 gallon jugs all over the floor here, filled with water, ready to give to people who didn't bring their jugs. And as soon as I opened the door, I said, oh no. I actually used a different word, but the jugs were scattered all over the place, and you could see that water had gotten into the building. And behind me here is an electric motor, which actually powers the cat pump, and that had been half submerged, as well as the distribution pump over there. That had been submerged as well, and they're electric motors. So I was scared that that wasn't going to start, but we'd already invented, through creativity and to be redundant, we have a gravity feed self-serve stations outside. So I set them up, and I closed the door and scratched my head and did some trickery, and I got the electric motor running and started the generator and started making water to refill the tank, which these people were draining real quick, and we gave away water. The word got out that Rotary was giving away water, and people kept coming all through the day, and we even kept serving water through the night. When it got dark, probably about 9, 10 o'clock, Rotarians all went home, but we left the self-service stations open so people could still come and get their water. And that went on for a few months, around the clock. The generator ran nonstop for 28 days. We stopped it once just to check the fluids in it, the oil and the coolant water in it, and it really did its thing. We basically make our own power with our own generator. We make water from this baby behind me, which is a reverse osmosis unit. It makes 10,000 gallons a day in a 24-hour period. And we draw our water from our own well. So if city water's off, which normally happens after a hurricane, power's normally off after a hurricane, we make our own power, we draw our own water, we make water, and it's pure. Water's measured in what's in it, and it's measured by total dissolved solids in parts per million. In the United States, the US EPA wants 550 TDS in parts per million for water to be what's called potable, to be able to drink. In the Bahamas, we follow the World Health Organization, which is 1,000 parts per million. The lower, the better. We make water anywhere between 20 and 30, 40 total dissolved solids in parts per million, which is really pure. A lot of the bottled water you buy in the supermarkets isn't that pure. So we make really good water, and people know that too, because for the first 8 days, we were the only source of water. And then the NGOs came, and thank God for the international community that really came and helped Abaco and Grand Bahama, and also places like Nassau and Spanish Wells, which were hosting a lot of the refugees that left Abaco and Grand Bahama to go live with friends or just because they lost everything. So thank God for the international NGOs. I won't call a name because there were hundreds of them here. And when they started making their water about 8 or 9 days after with us, people could taste the difference because they actually chlorinate their water a little bit, and we don't really. We don't need to because we use our water so fast from the need that it just tastes pure as could be. And actually, if you make ice with our water, it's crystal clear. And their water's kind of cloudy. It's still good water. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm bragging or throwing anybody under the bus here, but Rotarians are proud people, and we're really proud of this facility here. It came about in 2005 after Hurricane Frances and Jeanne cut the water supply to the island off. And we thought we needed some way of providing water. At the time, here on the island, we were just thinking about maybe drilling a well and having some type of filter or something. But little did we know that there was a Rotarian in the Rotary Club of Santa Monica that used to be in the Rotary Club of East Nassau, and his club wanted to do something with water. So he said, hey, how about the Bahamas? They contacted past international president Barry Rassin, who's from the Rotary Club of East Nassau, and Barry said, hey, how about Freeport? They get hit by hurricanes all the time, and they could use a water treatment center. So it all came together, and the Rotary Clubs of 70-20, which is the rest of the Bahamas other than Grand Bahama Island, and most of the Caribbean, and the Rotary Clubs of Los Angeles area, they threw money in and Rotary matched it. And then the thing about a Rotary grant is you cannot build a building. You can have a building and you can furnish it with a water baker or school desks or whatever, but you can't actually build a structure. So there's a foundation called the TK Foundation, and they ended up putting money into the project, and they actually built the building with their funds, and funds were left over, which we were able to buy a bunch of tanks and trailers and other equipment and spare parts and things like that. By the way, the TK Foundation right now is building homes in Sweeting's Key. They're funding that, along with the Lyford Key Foundation. So all told, $217,000 went into this facility. And what it is solid concrete walls. They're 4 inches thick. We got a metal roof. We're 12 feet above grade. And even still, we did flood after the Dorian, which was a monster storm for us. We make our own power, we make our own water. We have a nice bathroom with a refrigerator that we keep stocked with beer and wine and water. And we're able to, I'm sure you can edit this. And we make pure water and we give it away for free. We don't charge. We've been asked by certain companies that want pure water for their high pressure washers, and we're not allowed to. We are a Grand Bahama Port Authority licensed company. That gives us a customs bond, so we're able to bring in any equipment for this facility duty-free, so we do not pay import duty or VAT. We're all volunteers. We've got quite a crew of us that throughout the year when everything's normal, they're just doing their things and other Rotary projects and that, but whenever there's a hurricane or a real need, they come together. And I got here first, but within an hour, there was probably 20 Rotarians and Rotaractors here to help me, which is pretty good because when there's a couple hundred people outside and you're all alone and freaking out because everything just went underwater, it's good to have other support from your peers.
Can you talk a little bit about the nature of water distribution? Of course, anxieties were high, fears were high, losses were great, and literally you're serving maybe hundreds or more people every day. What was the nature of the scene? I mean, I could tell you what I experienced as a person, passing by, but as a person operating the facility, what was the nature of people's expectation or of their appreciation, or both?
People were very orderly this storm. It was thousands of people a day we served. And we were doing it in two different ways. We were doing it with people walking up to the plant with their own, driving up or walking up with their own jugs and filling them. And then we have a system, a bunch of trailers we have with tanks on them. And we would drive through the neighborhoods, particularly the outlying neighborhoods. And then even in the heart of Freeport and other places, people just didn't want to leave their properties because walls might have been down or windows or doors were gone, and they were trying to protect what they had left. So the anxiety was high, but we had our fleet of Rotarians with their vehicles just driving through, giving water. And shortly thereafter, we were not only given water, at the same time we were given food. Because when the NGOs started up, they came with food. but their water systems that they were drilling wells and putting RO systems, they took a little while for them to get the systems up and running, and then it took a little while for them to be certified by environmental health. Our water is tested twice a year and is sent to environmental health, who gives us a sanitation certificate, which means we're sanctioned by the officials to give away water. And they inspect us.
Wow. You've obviously survived many hurricanes, right? Was the nature of your preparation for this hurricane any different? Did you anticipate that essentially it was going to be as devastating as it was compared to the many others that you have already?
To be honest, no, because we prepare to the fullest extent anyways, no matter what. And a good example of that is Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane Sandy, we knew was going to hit us on the other side of Abaco. In fact, the eye of the storm was 128 miles away from the water plant. So that's quite a ways away. But we still prepared as if it was a direct hit. And Sandy was a bad storm for us. It flooded parts of the island, and we prepared for that. Wilma was another one. Wilma, if you remember, was a storm that came from the west. It came over Florida first and then came here. And that was the one that it made a tidal wave, which fortunately, that storm was a daytime storm, a real quick storm, because if it had happened in the night, a lot of people would have lost their lives because they would have been drowned. So to answer your question, we prepare the same every storm, but we learn from every storm. So with this storm, we had a better outside fill station. We had better communication. We had a new chat group that we created, a second chat group.
I'm interested in that too, because in some ways it seems like you perhaps were more organized or just as organized as, let's just say, an organization whose primary function it would have been to be aware of what was going on the island and to share that information with other persons. So can you tell us a little bit about how that information sharing worked?
Well, in Rotary, we have a bunch of different chats. Each club has its own chat. Then there's
a wine chat, a beer chat.
No, there is the largest fellowship in Rotary is the Wine Appreciation Group, which, by the way, I'm on the board of directors. And that's the truth. And there's a whiskey one and a rum one and a flying Rotarian, everything. I'm getting off course here. So what happens is there's a group chat for all the Rotarians on the island. And then there was a general one for the water plant people who had shown interest and been around here at the other storms. And then we have a more intense chat group, which is the actual operators, the people that are driving the trucks and the trailers and filling the tanks and operating some of the systems. So we were communicating through the storm, and I must say that one of the phone companies was very good in keeping us up to speed because they never lost service at all. And WhatsApp seems to be a fantastic way to get or texting seems to be a fantastic way to communicate. I also want to give a big shout out to Ricardo Lightborn of ZNS TV and radio. He comes on every hurricane, and hopefully we won't hear from him again because we won't get another hurricane, but he comes on and he's very calm and cool and gives information about what businesses are opening up and what's happening here and who should contact who, and we're looking for so-and-so. And we feed him a PSA, a public service announcement, for him to air on the radio. Rotary Water Plant's open for business. Please bring your jugs. Please be polite and orderly and help elderly people carry their jugs to their car. That's basically, in a nutshell, what it says.
If you could, tell us a little bit about Rotary itself. Many people are not so familiar about the history of Rotary internationally or even locally here on Grand Bahama and how that relates to the building and the operation of this plant.
Well, Rotary is the largest public service civil organization in the world. We're all over the world. And because we're all volunteers, we have no problems with race, religion, gender, equality, things like that, religion. So we're able to get things done in countries that other governments can't do. And a perfect example of that is polio. We're able to go in war-torn countries like Afghanistan and Pakistan, and we're able to go talk to the tribal to tribal chiefs and say, listen, we want to vaccinate your kids because this polio is crippled. See all these crawlers, they call them, crawling around. So we've made tremendous strides. And our biggest goal is to eradicate polio. And right now we only have 2 countries left. If you think about it, polio was eradicated in the Bahamas, I want to say in the 70s. The Bahamas and the US and this side of the world kind of thing. Polio is a waterborne disease from bad water, which is funny that we're sitting in a water facility as we talk about that. And it cripples kids. It really does. And it requires 2 vaccines. And it's an oral vaccine. And we have volunteers all over the world that are still vaccinating people. And to be certified as polio-free country, you need 3 years of no outbreaks. But the harsh reality about polio is it's only a plane ride away. And we have all this problems in the world with refugees crossing borders that aren't vaccinated. And next thing you know, you have an outbreak in a country that's already been certified polio-free, like India or something like that. Here in the Bahamas, and Rotaries worldwide, as a Rotarian, I wear one of the most recognizable pins in the world, the Rotary wheel. And you'll be walking through an airport and say, hey, Rotario, Rotarian, and people will stop you and find out what club you're from and where you're going and all that. And you can attend any Rotary club in the world as a Rotarian, and you're welcome as one of them. I've been to Rotary clubs in countries that I don't even speak the language, and they've accommodated me in Chile and Curacao and Brazil and Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic, sorry. Where they spoke another language, and for that meeting, somebody sat next to me and translated everything and took me places and showed me things and things like that. So we're a worldwide humanitarian organization, the largest in the world, 1.2 million members. Here in the Bahamas, we're walking on cloud 9 because every year there's an international president from somewhere in the world. And last year was Barry Rassin from Doctors Hospital. And he's a down-to-earth guy, a Bahamian, and he's on a first-name basis with everybody. He's considered one of the most friendliest Rotary presidents ever. He, by the way, is spearheading the COVID vaccination efforts in the country.
Which would make sense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But if you go to get your vaccine here in Nassau or anywhere, you're going to find Rotarians organizing everything. You're going to find them doing the data entry. You're going to find them with the number system and all of that, because that's what we do. We help out.
Certainly. The impact of this water plant on Grand Bahama during Dorian was unprecedented. I don't think that anyone would take any issue. I mean, you know, if we were to talk about the champions who emerged in the hours and the days and the weeks and then the long months and now even years out, you know, you're still functioning in that capacity. It is my feeling that Rotary has enriched your life greatly. It has to be. There's no other way that you come day in and day out, volunteering, taking time out from your own life to run this project if you did not feel passionately about what it gives back. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You're actually right. It's actually one of the best things in my life that ever happened to me other than meeting my wife. I was told to say that, by the way.
That was the most.
So I did good on that one.
Best thing.
And it's an interesting story because I used to be a hotel general manager for a Divvy resort in Cayman Brac. And I was a manager before that, years before that, in a Divvy resort in Bonaire. And the head chef in Bonaire was now in Cayman Brac because his wife was from Cayman Brac. And when I got there, hey, Ron, how you doing? Hey, Mike, good to see you. Glad to have you here again. And he says, watch out for the group that meets upstairs on Tuesday nights. They're going to come and complain to you. So I said, okay. So I looked in the books and figured out it was Rotary. I knew about Rotary growing up here and all that. And sure enough, Tuesday, about 5 o'clock, a guy comes in to the office and he says, hi, I'm so-and-so from Rotary, and we meet upstairs. Would you like to come join us for dinner? And all I could think of was Chef Ron saying, no, no, no. So I said, well, I'm kind of busy. He says, all right, well, how about next week or whatever? And then he kept coming in and said, you know, we're doing a community service project down the road this weekend. Would you like to join us? I'm like, Chef Ron, no, I'm doing that. So that's kind of really bad because I could have been in Rotary like 10 years before I did. So, and what really makes a Rotarian understand what Rotary is about is not only the service and helping other and getting that little teary eye and lump in the throat once in a while, but when you go to a Rotary International Convention, I've been to 10, and they're all over the world. And what we do is we tack on a little travel to it too. For instance, when we went to Sao Paulo, we spent 10 days in Chile drinking wine tasting.
Wine enthusiasts.
And when we went to Hamburg, we spent 11 days in the Czech Republic, wine tasting and history and all that. But back to the conventions, there's a bunch of countries in Rotary. I don't want to call a number and be wrong, but they're all over the world. So when you go there, you see people dressed in their traditional dress. So you'll see the Japanese in their komodos, and the Koreans and the African nations dressed in their African gowns and garbs. And you'll see Hawaiians, and you'll see South Americans.
I got to tell you, Mike, you're selling me here.
And good, that's the pitch. And of course, when we come from the Bahamas, what we've done is we've created an ambrosia shirt. And we all try and go, we all hang together. And I'm kind of known as Mr. Flag on the Stick, because what I've done is I've created a PVC pipe that telescopes together, that fits in my suitcase, and then I have a Bahamian flag on a wire, and I stand there and I gather all the Bahamians together, and we all go into the opening session of the Rotary Convention. And during the opening session, there's a session every day, but the opening session is special because there's the ceremony of flags of the Rotary world. And they go through all the flags, and when they get to the Bahamas, we all stand up and yell and scream and all that. And we're still screaming and yelling. They're already on Denmark, you know? But it's been a tradition, and I'm known as Flag on the Stick Mike.
Flag on the Stick Mike. Mike, what lessons, talking about the lessons that Rotary has taught you, what are the lessons that not necessarily that Dorian has taught this water plant, but that you have learned in the process of responding to, specifically to Dorian, but also more broadly to disasters of that kind? Well,
I guess we learned how to calm down a little bit, because in the beginning, when we first started responding, we were all worked up and driving around like crazy and speeding and all that. Now we know, okay, the people are going to get their water, just chill and, you know, drive normally, because everybody else is driving crazy. And we've been through some challenges, and I have too. My parents were buried at Pinders Point Cemetery, and this is during Wilma, before the water plant. We were receiving supplies from Nassau by plane, and we were splitting them all up at the what we call the Rotary Warehouse now, which is the old Leader Beverages where they used to sell the sweet sodas. And for some reason, my pickup truck got loaded with baby supplies. I don't have children. I have one cat with 4 paws, orange fur. And so I'm going through Pinders Point, and I've got somebody with me who knows where all the babies are and that need the stuff. And we get by the church where the cemetery is, and the police or the defense forces got it blocked off. And they say, you can't pass here. There's, you know, been some people up in the bush here, coffins in the bush. I say, well, you know, I'm from Rotary and I got baby supplies, and we have 8 houses on the other side here. He says, okay, be careful. So as we're driving along, I look up there and there's my father's coffin. Well, back in the 70s, I'm sure they still do it. There's a little brass tag that says Patrick James Stafford on it. So I went up there, and one door was gone, and he was gone too, which was fine. And what do? You shed a tear, you get back in the truck and get them crying babies their food. And that's what happened during Wilma with me. So
that is tough.
Yeah, but you know, life goes on.
Life goes on.
Rotary wheel keeps turning.
Yeah, I know that in comparison to the losses of some other people, the personal losses, the personal flooding, these kinds of things that you suffered in your mind are set aside. If you could tell us a bit about how you are able to do that. How are you able to compartmentalize, you know, whether it's seeing your father's casket or seeing water in your own home, or just all of these things that you are personally experiencing? How are you able to set them aside and, you know, show up and open the doors and
well, I think this is, somebody said it to me a couple of weeks afterwards, this building, this facility and this purpose is really therapy for me. You know, I mean, I left my wife at a house that our main house had been flooded and she was kind of freaked out, and we were laying in bed up at our safe place, and she said, I know, and the storms all around her. She said, I know after this, you're going to leave me here to clean up this mess, and you're going to go to the water plant because that's what you do. But that's okay, because I know you'd be crazy staying around here, and I love you, and bye-bye. And I said, all right, I'm out of here. And it was still blowing a holly-gully. So, but this has been therapy for me, and a lot of Rotarians, I think, are feel the same way. Helping others is what we do. And you get people that join Rotary for the wrong reasons, and you get people that join Rotary because they were told to join Rotary, and you get people that join Rotary in both of those categories, and they don't stay. And you get people in both of those categories either join for the wrong reasons or join because they were told to, and they stay and they get hooked on it, and they're lifetime Rotarians. There's a term called Rhino, Rotarian in name only, and there's a bunch of them.
Wow. I know that one of your hopes perhaps is that people who are not Rotarians in name only, who find themselves useful, who wish to serve, would consider joining Rotary. What are your other hopes, particularly those for Grand Bahama in an economy that has lagged for some time? What is it that you hope to see here?
Well, as Sandra Bullock said in Miss Congeniality, worldwide peace. Here in Grand Bahama, I'd like to see everybody start working together. We obviously have a lot of problems with youth development here. Education problems, and Rotary's trying to tackle that too. We have a lot of problems with health. We are one of the most unhealthiest nations in the region. We have a crime problem. We have all kinds of social, economic problems that we need to start working on, not only blaming the government for everything, and that's what happens. I'm sure all over the world, it's all the government's problem. It's either this party that's in now or the next party that's in, and whoever. No government can do it right, but the opposition can always do it better, or the person on the street can always do it better. So we need, as people, as Bahamians, we all need to work together and start solving the problems and not look to the government and other people to do that. You know?
I think we're going to look to you, Mike. You seem to have a good handle on solving any number of problems.
There's a lot of us, or a lot of Mikes around. And back to this project here, it's not just Mike. There's no I in team. There's a lot of people involved in keeping this running and keeping it clean and doing the daily maintenance and repairing stuff and stocking stuff. And hopefully a lot of them will come on board with some funding, because we do need some funds.
And how many gallons of water would you say?
Well, this is the hour meter up here. And we've been through 4 of these because we get I don't want to blame anybody, but we get an electrical power surge, which we're addressing by putting a regulator on our inbox. And so we've been through 3 of these gauges. And we have a log that we log every hour that we start the generator, because we start the generator every time, even though we're hooked up to city power. We start the generator just because we need to make sure the thing runs. So we can tell by our hours, and it tells how many gallons per minute are on here that we produce and how many gallons per minute that we reject. And we figure that since Dorian, about 2 months ago, our count was just under 300,000 gallons.
Wow.
Which is a lot.
A lot.
And in Matthew, we did 200,000 gallons. In Sandy, we did 2,000 gallons. We thought we were really cool in Sandy. And then Matthew came along and we did 200,000 gallons. We thought, wow, man, this is off the chain. Now we're at 300,000 gallons. And we figured that since we built this facility, we're climbing around 1 million gallons of water that we've produced. Now, when I say produced, when there's no hurricane going and when there's no need for water, we still run the machine every week, but we throw the water away, we reject it. There's 5 wells on this property now with the second machine. And we have a well that we pick up from, and then we have a well that we reject from. Because if you're sucking 10 gallons of water out of the well to force through these membranes, we only get to keep about 3.5 gallons of that, and the rest is called brine, and it's rejected in the reject well, which then goes through the limestone and goes back into our pickup well eventually.
Well, 1 million gallons is quite an accomplishment, of which we are certain that you are proud, of which you should be proud. We want to thank you for your time today. We want to thank Rotary for its service, and just wish you the best in the future. Hopefully, no more Dorians.
No, hopefully we're done. We really just need to. My hope would be that we don't get a hurricane for a number of years, and it also that our potable water coming through our city water taps becomes potable, because right now it's not, and it's causing a lot of stress.
I mean, I think that that's important, that people understand that this is not a luxury. Right. That water is a human right, it's a human necessity, and that the water that you are providing for the public is, in some instances, the only water, that fresh water, potable water, as you said, that they have access to, because that's life changing, and that's life sustaining, really. And
Bahamians, we don't realize that over half the world's population does not have access to drinkable water. There are children dying since we've started this every minute. Kids are dying from bad water. Bad water is causing dysentery and diarrhea, so they can't be nourished. There's countries like India, which has the highest open defecation rate in the world. And it goes into the water system, into their rivers and streams, and people are going to these rivers and streams and they're washing their clothes, they're going to the bathroom there, and then they're toting water home to drink and cook with. Children, typically young girls, don't go to school because they have to tote water for hours so that their family has water. And typically in the world, the child is the one that gets the education, and the girl child is the one that cooks and cleans and totes the water. And Rotary has one of our biggest projects other than polio, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this, is called Hand Wash, which is the Haiti National Sanitation and Water Project. And our goal is to bring piped water to every household in Haiti. It's a multi-billion dollar, $35 billion project. And it's not that we're going to give water to the people, we're actually selling water to them. And there's different communes, they call them down there, and we can drill a well and we can have a system that pipes water to the house, and they actually pay for it. And there's already a few of these pay for water systems in Haiti. And if anybody wants to help, for $20,000, you can have a well drilled and the system set up, and there's people down there, Rotarians, that are managing these water systems. And one of the problems we have around the world with NGOs, non-governmental organizations, is they come in after disaster and they all mean well, and they do something, they take a picture and then they split, right? And we see it all over. We've seen it here in Grand Bahama, we've seen it in Abaco. Well, in sub-Saharan Africa and Haiti and Latin America, there's a lot of this that goes on with wells, where they'll drill a well and then they'll split and nobody comes back to fix the well or the water system that comes from the stream up the hill. They don't teach the local population how to do it, and they're not coordinating their efforts. We have a situation in Haiti where there's a photograph of a NGO that came in. They drilled a well. It's not functional now, but in the same photograph is a national water system outlet that they could have just gone and repaired that one. But they didn't. They said, oh, we're here to drill wells. We brought all our stuff in our toolbox and that's what we're doing. So it's a big problem with things like that. We're not trying to discourage NGOs because they were a savior in all of our storms.
I think what you're saying, though, is that it takes coordination and it takes both a short-term kind of response, emergency response, but also a long-term vision.
Right.
And I think that this facility definitely epitomizes that, because you could have taken thousands of dollars and perhaps just purchased thousands of bottles of water.
Right.
But you took that money and now you've resourced it and turned it into millions of gallons of water.
And speaking of the gallon jugs of water, everybody says, well, how come you're not giving away gallon jugs of water? Well, we'd have to buy the water jugs, first of all. And the waste involved. One of the things that showed up on this island, unfortunately, was all these little bottles of water like this. They're all in a landfill. 20, 30, 40 years, I don't even know the lifespan. The cap, I know, takes a lot longer than the bottle to get rid of, to biodegrade. So we decided long ago that we're not going to do that. Another thing that this facility originally was designed for was to have water and ice. Because ice would be really nice right now. We could have a cold drink with it and all that,
And after Dorian, ice was, I couldn't even explain to you what it was like to get even a block of ice. It was just so But precious. The problem with ice is the ice machine. So when you start up an ice machine, they don't like to be turned back off. They want to keep running, and you have to keep it sanitary. Well, we can't keep an ice machine running all the time. And then what kind of size of an ice machine do we need for 150 people to be outside arguing over you're only getting a little small bag of ice, So we decided right from the beginning, it's very controversial when myself and some others made that decision, that we're not doing ice, and it's paid off. And then the other thing we get is, well, why can't we build one of these down in 8 Mile Rock and down in East End and all that? Well, the thing is, somebody has to own it. Somebody's got to come here once or twice a week and check on things and start the machine up and sweep the floor, clean the toilet, kill the rat if the rat gets in the wintertime. Not that we have rats here, don't put that on there. You can if you want. But somebody's got to own the situation. And that's the problem, because what people want to do is think that something like this, you just open the door after a storm and start it up. That doesn't happen. That's not the reality of what's going on here. So. Well, we are very, very grateful that you and your fellow Rotarians have owned this situation, are operating this plant, had the gumption to have a vision that was this large and this expansive, and that unfortunately in Grand Bahamians' worst hour definitely rose to the occasion. And so we thank you for your service then and now, and we thank you for your time.
There is one other thing, if I can add. We have been granted a piece of property around this by the Grand Bahama Port Authority. And our plan is to elevate it at the same level as this and to build a Rotary clubhouse where we can all have, and I say our plan, it's not mine. I got my hands filled with this. So the other Rotarian leaders, they'll decide, but the vision is that we have a feeding station so that after a storm, people can come here, get their water, and then go next door and they can get their food to carry home or whatever. And maybe we can also meet there at our meetings and all that kind of thing. So Rotary's still thinking, Rotary's still working. We're still building homes. We've helped so many homes around the island. We're now concentrating on Sweeting's Key that kind of got left out. So, and we rely on donations and fundraisers.
Well, I definitely think that you have proven beyond measure that not only that you have a worthy cause, but you are the best stewards imaginable. And so we thank you again.
Thank you.
Interview by Dr. Crystal A. DeGregory, April 2021. Funding for this interview was provided by the International Organization for Migration Bahamas. Dorian and beyond, battered but not broken. For more information, please visit us online at www.dorianandbeyond.org.